Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. And this is the Sports Page with Bob Case. And today we have two guests, don't we, Bob? But basically, we're going to talk a little bit of baseball with one, and then I don't know what we're going to talk about with Matt. I have no idea what we're going to do. But Sandra's along with us. And Bob, obviously, you have very special connections with certain people that you've known for a long, long time. Maybe not as long with Matt, but his family and everything that's a part of his baseball history. Let's talk a little bit more about why we have Matt and Sandra on today, and their connections with Bob Case.
Yeah, Harper, it's an honor to have Matt and to meet Sandra. Matt, the first time I ever heard of Matt Franco was in I think it was like 1986. Rod Dato, the coach at SC, said, "Bob, we have nobody recruiting for SC in the Ventura County." And he said, and at that time, Simi Valley High School was number one in the country in 1986. And they had, I don't know, two or three guys that had made the major leagues. And I live in Westlake Village, and all I've been hearing is Matt Franco, Matt Franco, Matt Franco. So I actually went down, watched him. I think I talked to him a couple times. And then he was, he didn't need to go to SC for sure. He had a 20-year professional baseball career. 8 years in the big leagues and 3 years in Japan in their big leagues, which is fantastic. And I want to talk about that. And, but forget all that stuff. When I look over his life and I see him today sitting there as a sober guy and Sandra sitting next to him, that's better. I think Sandra's better than, being in the big leagues because, in other words, I look at her and I say, he's in the big leagues. You know what I mean? So that's all I want to tell you. And
it has nothing to do with baseball, does it, Bob? The big leagues,
not at all.
Yeah,
man,
absolutely.
I'm so happy for him, and he's turned his life around. He's doing great in all aspects of his life. He's got 2 baseball playing sons, and I'm so proud of what he's achieved in his life. And I think he'll be a great interview because he has an amazing history. And I'm honored to know him and call him a friend. And I just can't wait to hear him talk about a lot of the things. And so I'm grateful to be here to hear you guys.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
And I'm telling you, Matt, it's interesting. Most of the guests we've had on here, everybody liked him. I've never heard a negative. I know 2 guys that Matt played for. One's been on this show, Daryl Evans and Bobby Valentine, and they love Matt. You know what I mean? They were their managers. So it's like, and I've talked. I've never once. Same thing as we said about Tony Olive and some other guy. I've never heard a negative word about Matt from anybody. You know what I mean? So what does that tell you? Because in baseball, there's not that many people you never hear a negative thing about.
Well, Matt, Bob, I bet you that Sandra has said, "Hey, take the trash out again." I'm not going to say it anymore, right, Sandra?
Right, exactly what I was thinking.
We're going to try to keep the show clean and positive and all that. But
I have a bad thing to say about him in regards to the trash.
Yeah. Well,
no one says anything negative about Matt that I've heard either. He's so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm so proud of his life.
You guys are
I got to tell you, I'm really proud of this guy.
Sandra, how'd you guys meet? Don't look at him. I didn't ask Matt. I asked you.
What? What's that?
I didn't ask Matt how you guys met. I asked you how you met.
Yeah, we met at a local bar, Crawford's in Westlake. Yep, I was there with my girlfriend, and he was there with one of his buddies. And
it's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant, Crawford's.
Yeah,
it's going broke, but
is it?
Yeah. They're trying though. Everyone should try it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where we met.
Sandra, according to you, did you make eyes with him first, or was he staring you down from across the room? How did that happen?
Back in '87, my baseball started.
Yeah.
We did look at each other. I just remember thinking, why am I talking to my girlfriend with these 2 hot guys sitting here? So we just started chit-chatting, and he was super charming, and I ran my fingers through his hair, and I said, I'm in.
Yeah, very good. And I know you're headed to the gym here in just a little bit, right? So
yeah.
obviously athletics and staying in shape and things like that are important to you. But I need to know who takes the trash out. Does Matt have to take the trash out, or do you occasionally take it out if he's if he's really watching a game and it's really important? It's the bottom of the 8th inning or something like that.
You can answer that question, babe.
She takes the trash out because I don't live here. So those are the rules.
Okay, well that's fine. Very good.
No, we split it. I take it out sometimes.
Who's the better cook, Sandra?
Oh, that's the easy one.
I love cooking.
Never mind.
So
Never
yeah.
mind. Yeah, that's a done deal.
She's fantastic.
Well,
But, it's just it's two adults, so we go out quite a bit. So
there you go. Yeah,
pick up
absolutely. Do you ever go to Tommy Burgers? That was my place when I was in high school. I used to go to Tommy Burgers and get a chili cheese only. That's a little bit too far for you guys from where you are, aren't
Actually, that's a funny story. I OD'd on Tommy Burgers. I haven't been there in years because there was one right down the street from where I lived in Simi, and I went there twice a week, and finally I couldn't take it anymore. I love that place.
There's a certain amount of grease that if they don't stir it up, that if you get too much grease and not about chili, it'll mess you up for days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, back in the day. Well, speaking of back in the day, when did baseball really become an important part of your life, Matt, where you were in Little League or church league stuff or just family get-togethers, and there's a wiffle ball or a tennis ball, there's something that you can hit, there's enough people put together that you can have a little game and enjoy it to the point where I really like this specific, I like it and I want to keep playing.
Yeah, I have actually, I don't have any memories other than baseball. It's my first memory that I have. It's something that I loved ever since I can remember. And I wish Bing were here to tell the story because he used to say it a lot. He knew early on he would throw me a wiffle ball when I could barely hold a bat. And he would say if I threw it outside, he'd hit it over that way. If I threw it down the middle, he'd hit it right back at me. If I threw it inside, he'd pull it that way. So yeah, ever since I was a little kid, I love baseball. I was born into a baseball family, and it's really all I've ever known or loved.
But for those that don't know, a baseball family for some is we like watching the Dodgers or the Yankees or something like that. And when we get together, it's a little bit unique for you. Talk a little bit about, more specifically, some of the things that baseball, especially from a professional level, minor league level, your involvement with it specifically. So give us a little background there.
I'll let you take the stage.
Okay. Bye, baby.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. So, well, actually, what was the exact question that you wanted?
Well, you said we come from a baseball family.
Yeah.
Let's dig a little bit deeper with that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, gosh, it started with my grandfather, who grew up in Maine. His dad was a pilot, and he flew privately for people. And one of my grandfather's father, Bud Russell, was Lefty Gomez. So he would fly Lefty from St. Petersburg, Florida, where they had spring training, and he would fly Lefty around. And Bing started showing up at the ballpark. And the story goes, Bing was at the ballpark, and somebody hit a home run, and Bing got the ball, and he was a little kid. And, of course, a bunch of older kids circled him and wanted the ball. And Bing just started hitting these other kids. And right around then, Lefty Gomez pulled up in his car to go to the airport, not the airport, but the field or whatever. And Lefty called Bing into the car and said, "Hop in with me, kid. You'll never have to fight for another baseball the rest of your life." And the story went, and Lefty Gomez just took Bing under his wing. And Bing ended up traveling with the Yankees through the good old days back in the 30s. And Lefty was Bing's godfather, and Lefty was a big part of our family growing up.
Wow. Yeah. And too bad the Yankees weren't any good back in the 30s, right? And the stardom of that, right, of Lefty. Bob, you know all about that by just hanging out with Casey as much as you did, and realize as another Yankee, it's a different world in terms of the hierarchy, right, for a guy like that versus somebody who was playing for maybe the Phillies or the New York Giants or something. Bob, explain for our listeners your relationship with Casey and how here is a guy that is a part of baseball history, and everywhere you went, it was Casey and Bob, who's with him. You know what I mean? That it's just this guy has the cachet.
Well, I've always said, Harper, in life, I always say there was a famous movie that Cary Grant did with David Niven and what's the lady's name? Anyway, it was called My Father, or no, The Bishop's Wife. And Cary Grant plays an angel in a human body walking around on earth helping people. And I've been blessed in my life to have angels, and they weren't my immediate family, but I've had angels come into my life, or I wouldn't have lived to see 45 if I hadn't had these angels, and Casey was definitely an angel. He was like a father. He took me like Lefty Phillips took, Bing, and he gave me self-esteem. He gave me self-worth. He made me think, gee, I thought if Casey Stengel really likes me, I must be worth something. That's because I had no self-esteem, no worth. And, we hung out together for 10 years and, he was my mentor, my go-to guy. And he opened up. I never went to college, but I tell my daughter 10 years with Casey was better than going to Harvard or Yale or Penn. And because that opened up my whole life, and I represented like 40 major league players after that. And because I had the experience with Casey, that gave me all the ins to the roads to all the people. And Matt, what I want to say about Matt is I recognize Matt and Darrell Evans have something in common. I think both their families, if Matt Franco was President Franco, President of the United States, I think they would have been much happier having what he's accomplished in his life. And that's the way Darrell Evans' parents were. Darrell, they loved baseball. I had lunch with Matt's beautiful mom, Jill, and her name is Jill, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she blew my mind. She's talking about what a great pitcher Sam McDowell, who we've had on this show, what a great pitcher he was, and da-da-da-da. I mean, she loves baseball, the mother, and she used to play catch with Matt when he was a kid. And so, you look at
more than that. She threw me batting practice. And
that's what I mean. It's unbelievable. So it's like, so he was like he knew more about baseball in ninth grade than half these major leaguers do today about fundamentals and that kind of stuff, because he grew up in it. It's osmosis. It was around him his whole life, so, and I never met Bing, but I have heard more stories about what a great character he was. The guy was around Lou Gehrig and all those people and Babe Ruth. And I mean, just a great character, and everybody loved Bing too. I mean, he was a real fun guy that loved baseball. So I think it's Matt inherited that from Bing, and then Kurt was showing Matt how to play baseball. And I used to kid Matt. I said, I bet Bing Russell was more proud of you than Kurt Russell, the movie star. Because Bing loved baseball. And Bing was an actor himself.
Bing loved baseball and acting. I got a quick story for you because you mentioned Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig gave Bing his last home run bat. Believe that or not.
Wow.
Yeah. Bing had these very cool bats as we were growing up as kids. They were like heirlooms of the family. And with all Bing's stories and stuff, we heard all the stories. And when Bing passed away, he passed the bats on to my mom. And my mom had these really cool bats just laying around the house. And we had heard all the stories and stuff, but, we didn't really know what's going on. So anyway, one day I'm looking at these bats and I said, I'm just going to look into these bats a little bit. Made a couple phone calls and did some stuff. And through a lot of hard work and provenance, they call it, it was proven that it was actually Lou Gehrig's last home run bat. And it now sits in the Hall of Fame. Somebody bought it off of auction because we figured it should be in the Hall of Fame instead of sitting in my mom's kitchen there. So that was pretty cool.
How old were you when you started to realize that Grandpa is my grandpa, but he also has, as a younger man, your grandpa has such a story and a legacy and all these things that are connected and tied to baseball?
Oh, that was at a young age. I hung out with Bing a lot. He took me to a lot of my baseball stuff, especially when I became a teenager and I started traveling around and playing different places. And Bing just knew everyone. He knew everyone. Everyone loved Bing. He was a great storyteller, and he knew the game, and he loved the game, and he loved being at the ballpark and telling stories. So from an early age, I knew that there was something special about Bing.
Now, were there ever times where you and the boys are playing in the neighborhood, right? You got a game, whether it be wiffle ball or is there a field nearby, or was it somebody's driveway and the garage door was the backstop, right? You play games like that all the time in the street?
My first memory of that is Bing's living room. We used to take batting practice and ground balls in his living room when I was a little kid. So
We
the
hitting.
home run was off the back wall. A double was over there towards the bedroom. And those
Did
are
you have
my
one of
first
those little
memories of
mini
that.
bats that you would get with the Dodgers or the Angels? You'd swing one of those as a little kid?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
right. That was it.
All right, I need to know this, Matt. When did you play with the guys and they're all old enough and smart enough to figure out that when your mother, Miss Jill, walks out to tell you to come in, it's dinner time. We need a pinch hitter, and have your mom come and either strike somebody out or get to play. Anthony Davis had that. When Anthony was a young boy, his mother taught him how to hit, and she would pitch to him, much like yours.
Yeah.
And she was the most coveted player that the other team would want to have. And it would embarrass you because mom would beat you, and then you had to go in and have dinner with her.
Yeah, that was my mom. My mom was a great athlete. She was a race car driver when she was a little kid.
What?
And yeah, they raced quarter midgets. She and Kurt and her sisters. That's kind of what was their childhood. But
Wow.
my mom was a great athlete. She was a great softball player. I'm a great hitter, and my mom was my hitting coach all through my career. I called my mom almost every night after my games and talked about my at bats. Spent hours upon hours with her in the batting cage, and she helped build my swing. She's an incredible hitting coach. She could be a hitting coach for any major league team to this day.
Wow.
When you're slumping or going through a point where I don't know what's going on, would mom say, "Why are you overstepping with your right foot? How come you're dropping your shoulder?" Would she be able to recognize certain parts of your swing that
Yep.
you appreciated, and the other coaches and managers weren't able to figure it out?
Yes, that's exactly right. More in my major league career though, it was less technique stuff, because we had built my swing, how my swing was going to be. It was more about approach and what pitches I was swinging at, more in depth than overstriding or dipping my shoulder.
Okay, yeah,
It was a little bit more of the mental side of it.
sure,
The
and
swing stuff was in the off season when we were down in the batting cage. That's when we would tweak my swing.
Getting your quote unquote your head right too. Did you get into an argument with somebody beforehand? Is there a bill that you have coming up that you're not sure how you're going to pay? Are there other daily life conundrums that happen that can affect your outcome when it's the bottom of the fifth inning and you're at home and you need to get a single? You got to move the runner, right? Some of that stuff needs to be put off to the side, and clarity for going up for this at bat. Mom was there to help with a lot of that stuff too, I'm sure, right?
I honestly no. I was a
Okay.
professional at that time, and you got to put that stuff out. You're up there getting paid to do a job, and you can't be worrying about that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
you're taught in your career to leave that stuff at the clubhouse door, and when you walk in, it's all baseball. Not
Yeah.
really thinking about that stuff. But I
Well,
would talk to her about, my confidence was down, or I wasn't seeing the ball right, or this and that, and she was always there to talk me off the ledge.
yeah, absolutely. Well, um, when did you know that you started to begin wondering, do I have what it takes to get to the next level? And the next level would be after high school, or let's say at high school. When did you start feeling comfortable with your swing, with your fielding, with your throwing arm, your speed, and all of that kind of stuff that says, you know what, I'd still like to keep playing. Do I have a chance to do that?
Yeah, like I said, that was pretty early on. I was fairly gifted as a young kid, so I was always the best player around, and I loved it. And you never really. I always had dreams of doing that, but I would say, maybe sophomore, junior year in high school when I started getting older, and I really started thinking about what could possibly happen. I always knew I could hit. I was very confident as a hitter. The other parts of my game, I wasn't so sure that they were up to par for the next level. But I worked very hard on all aspects of my game. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say somewhere halfway through high school, probably.
Okay. Now, were there let's say, for example, freshman, sophomore, maybe even junior year, were there seniors that were being looked at and scouts coming by, or were there other games that you played in where there were scouts watching somebody on the other team, and then someone pats you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you, kid"?
Yes, that happened. That was more not so much at high school, but during high school years, I played on a team that was put together, and a lot of those kids that Bob mentioned from Simi Valley High School were on that team.
Okay.
So it was a team that we'd get together on the weekends and play against older guys, college guys, and professional players that were home in the off season. So the competition was very high, and that's when I started getting scouted.
Yeah. And your confidence, like you said, hey, I can hit this guy. He's throwing 5 miles an hour faster than anything I've seen at the high school level. And I may be a little late, but I'm getting around on this guy. I can get it. And
Exactly right.
you know what I mean? There's things like
It was
that.
more
And
like 10 or 15 miles an hour harder, but
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
the point is right.
What was your thought process like when you're going against someone like that, and then they throw a hook and you go, oh, I saw it. Yeah, you're going to strike out every now and then because you haven't seen it. But then you bring it back to when you play at the high school level, and your patience, being able to wait for a pitch that you really think that I'm waiting for this 3-1 fastball or a slider to come in. Your mental capacity to understand the game, especially having gone against bigger, older, faster, better players.
Yeah, that helped a lot. It's baseball is very humbling in that regard. You always you get to a certain level, and then when you face someone who's on a different level, it's very humbling. It's very demoralizing. And I had a lot of that growing up because I was always like we talked about, once I got to into high school, I started playing against kids that were older and stronger and better than me. So I was always kind of fighting to get up to that next level. And then when I would come down to my competition, I would just dominate. So,
Yeah.
and that was the case too. And I signed, professionally right out of high school. And I still remember my first day of pro ball. I called home basically in tears saying, what have I gotten myself into here? I couldn't believe how good everybody was. But you start playing with those guys every day, and you catch up to speed, and then you keep creeping along, getting your butt knocked down, and then you get up and do it again. Before you know it, you're up to speed and you're handling those guys. And next thing you know, you wake up in the major leagues.
Matt, were you 17? 18 years old when you signed that contract? That's got to be one that puts a big smile on your face. But next thing you know, it's time to go to work, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a big thrill.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it was a huge thrill, but that thrill lasted for about 2 days, and then I was on an airplane to Arizona, and I was working the next day.
Yeah, and you're by yourself. But you're 18, and now they're close by. They're a phone call away. But that family system that you have, had you been prepared for that in one way, shape, or form when you were 14, 16 years old? That if you do have a chance to sign with the Cubs organization or in the Appalachian League or anything like that, that there's going to be some soul searching, right? That you're by yourself.
Yeah, I thought I was prepared for it, but I wasn't. It was tough. I was 17. I hadn't turned 18 yet. So my first summer of pro ball, I was 17 years old, and I was a long way from home, away from my family and friends, and I was having a blast, but there was definitely a period there of being homesick and the reality of, wow, I'm really on my own now. That was a shell shock a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine for anybody it was. I know when I watched my parents disappear as the car pulled away, and I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm a freshman going to play football, and where is everybody?
Yeah.
And now I got to turn back and go, and now what do I do? Right? There's a now what do I do aspect of it. But you had the work, right? You had the learning, the meetings, the preparation, the batting practices, the fielding, everything that kept you somewhat busy, but you're still by yourself.
Yeah, that's right. You are very busy. It's an everyday sport, so you're at the ballpark for the majority of your time. But you definitely have some downtime when you're by yourself. And like you said, there's some soul searching going on there for sure.
Yeah. You got to get a bank account. You got to find a car or something like that. I mean, all of that is just, who's going to feed me now?
Yeah.
Or you used to having, 3 squares, so to speak, when you're in the Westlake area, going to high school. Your friends come over. You're going to play video games and eat a bag of chips in 5 minutes, right? And get some Coke or Pepsi. And now it's completely different. This is the business aspect of it. How did your baseball family growing up help prepare you for that, where you were a little better prepared than maybe some of the other guys that were joining the team as a 17 or 18-year-old kid?
Yeah, well, I had been around it, and I knew what to expect, of course, and I was talked to about it. But until you experience it, there's really no way to prepare for it. You can talk to somebody about it all day, but until you're out there and you realize it's sink or swim, it kind of hits you.
Well, 95, you joined the club, but before that now, talk a little bit about the minor leagues and the system itself and the organizations, and are you happy to be a Cub, or do you talk to other friends and there's someone with the Cardinals or with the Mariners and you go, man, that guy's going to have a better break than I am, and how did you start mentally putting together, this is my path and this is where I'm going to end up at Wrigley Field?
Yeah, I was ecstatic to be drafted by the Cubs. Gosh, I couldn't ask for a better team. I never really thought about, what my chances would be on a different team. It didn't really work that way for me. I just had my nose to the grindstone, but I was proud to be a Cub. Yeah, I was grateful to be drafted by the Cubs, and what a great place to play your first game and get your first hit and do all those things is Wrigley Field. It was a blast getting called up to Chicago.
And this is nine. Now, was Maddox a part of the team then? And Mark Grace?
Maddox wasn't there, but Mark Grace was there. Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
Those were the big players. Maddox wasn't there; he was gone already.
He had already left, and he hadn't returned yet either, because I know he finished with several different clubs, but he went back to Chicago for a little while.
Yeah, I think he went from Chicago to Atlanta, I think, and I ended up playing with Greg in Atlanta years later.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. We'll get to that in just a minute, but Waverly and Addison, first time you go there, what was that like for you?
Wow, it was what a thrill. I mean, walking into the friendly confines, it was amazing. I definitely had that feeling of, I finally made it. It took me a while to get there. It took me 8 years to get there, but yeah, to walk into that stadium and be on the field for the national anthem and Wrigley Field with your family there, it's quite a thrill, I'll tell you.
Smaller ballpark, but the echo of the organ, seeing the people across the street at the top of the roof, with the bleachers that they put together. I still don't know how some people do that. I've got a fear of edges, and I just don't get it. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
The smell of the hot dogs, the hey batter swing batter, from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You get it through all of that kind of stuff, and now you're seeing the bricks, you're seeing the ivy on the wall, and you're there, and you belong there, right? You're a big leaguer now. Give us an idea of what that was like for you.
Oh, it was amazing. I remember, I'll never forget my first at bat. It's kind of a funny story. I remember being told I was going to go up to hit. It was a pinch hit. I think it was my third day in the big leagues. I didn't get in the first couple days, but I went up there and I was on deck, and I remember seeing the crowd, and my juices were flowing. I felt so great, and I was really excited getting my first at bat in the big leagues, talking to myself like, wow, you did it. My whole family was there, and it was so exciting. And I'll never forget, as soon as I heard my name, now batting for the Chicago Cubs, Matt Franco, it was like, it completely sucked the air out of me. I couldn't breathe all of a sudden. I walked up to home plate. I couldn't breathe. I was just telling myself, just breathe, Matt, breathe. You're going to pass out. I got in the batter's box, and I was so nervous. My back leg was shaking like a sewing machine. It was just going like this, and all I could think about was, I'm embarrassing myself on live television in front of my family. And before I could even realize what had happened, Armando Reynoso was the pitcher. It turned out to be a good friend of mine. I played with him later in New York. Threw a first pitch right down the middle. I hit an absolute bullet right to the first base when we were playing the Rockies, Andres Galarraga. It was
Yes.
right over the runner on first, right over the bag, easy double RBI, first at bat. And before I could even drop my bat, Andres Galarraga caught the ball. He never, at first base, you're supposed to kind of shuffle off. He didn't shuffle off at all, caught the ball, stepped on first. I hit into a double play. I never got out of the batter's box. That was my first at bat. And I remember walking back to the dugout with my chest kind of out, like, "Oh, that was cool, man. That was a great job, great first at bat." Even though it was a double play, I hit the ball great.
Yeah.
And I got the wind knocked out of myself very quickly. The manager of the team, Jim Riggleman, at the time, was standing there on the top step, and I come in, and he said to me, he goes, "We make our outs one at a time up here, kid." And it was just like, oh, just an arrow through my heart.
Yeah.
But then I sat down and
not two at a time. Don't do that, right? Don't do that.
Not two at a time.
my gosh.
We make our outs one at a time up here, kid.
Oh,
And it
my
kind
goodness.
of demoralized me. But I sat down on the bench, and I remember Mark Parent, Bernie, we called him, old veteran backup catcher. He came over and gave me a little elbow to the ribs and says, "Man, that was badass, dude. Great job." So that was kind of a fun story.
Yeah.
And then the next day I got my second at bat, and I hit a routine pop up to right field. It was a day game. The right fielder lost it in the sun. The ball dropped right next to him, and that was my first hit the very next day.
Did you get the hit, or did they give you an error?
No, I got the hit. He
There
lost
we
it in
go.
the sun, and it bounced right there. They couldn't give him
Yeah.
an error because he never did it. So
You're hitting 500, right? Now you're standing on first
500.
base, and did you have the same nerves when you came up for your second at bat, where you couldn't breathe and your sewing machine left leg wasn't working right?
No, but I
Good.
was still very nervous. But it
Sure.
wasn't the shock. The shock was gone. But I was nervous for probably. I got 17 at bats that year, and I think towards the end, after I had played a couple games, the nerves kind of went away.
Yeah.
But it took a few for sure.
What was different in terms of your preparation? Like, this guy's throwing gas. Well, everyone throws gas at that level, and everyone has the best slider you've ever seen and the tightest curveball and all that kind of stuff. What was your mental aspect of, wow, I really need to learn the game so much differently than I've just spent the last 4, 5, 6 years doing?
Well, that's not entirely true, because up through the minor leagues, once you get to Double-A and Triple-A, the stuff that the pitchers have is not a whole lot different. I've seen all the best curveballs and sliders and fastballs. It's not so much that, it's the control that the pitchers have, and the accuracy and the pitch selection and the fact they can throw those pitches at different counts. That's what makes a major league pitcher. You don't start seeing, in the major leagues, you start seeing 3-1 curveballs and 2-0 changeups and stuff like that. Whereas in the minor leagues, you're pretty much going to get a fastball in those counts. So that's the adjustment that you have to make, not so much getting up to speed or the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I'm just, asking from a guy that's never been there, but is very curious of how the mental aspect, because your ability to, hit a line drive to Big Cat, and even though he makes the double play and all that kind of stuff, I've seen that pitch 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
And it was, let's say middle, or it was on the inside. Of course, I'm going to pull it, and I hit it hard. I was right on the numbers with it.
That's right.
Yeah, and then sometimes can of corn, it's going to be an out anywhere else, but because the sun was what it was. Were the Cubs playing night games in '95 yet, or I think they were? But, okay.
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that might have been the first year. Maybe I could be wrong on that, but it was pretty new still. I know that.
Well, you get through that first season during the off season. Tell us about the Mets and how that came about.
Yeah, I went back with the Cubs the next season, and thought I was going to make the team. I had a good spring training, and I was one of the last guys not to make the team. And I remember going in, and they call you in to tell you you're going down. And I had no problem with it, and I said, "Great, I'll go back to AAA." Asked where I was going to be playing, first or third, because I kind of played both those positions at the time. And they said that I was going to start the season on the DL because of a numbers type thing. And I said, "DL? Well, it's a disabled list."
Yeah.
I wasn't hurt. I was totally healthy.
Right.
Anyway, they were like, "Well, we're not really sure what we're going to do here." And I said, "No, man, I'm not." It was the first time I kind of stood up for myself. And I said, "I'm not hurt. I'm not starting on the DL. You need to trade me. So sure enough, I got a call from a guy named Jack Zarenzik, who was the minor league director with the Mets. And since I had been to the big leagues the year before, I had what was called a split contract. So I was guaranteed a certain amount of money to go play in AAA with the Cubs. And Jack called me and asked if I would be interested in coming over to the Mets. The problem was that they could only pay me X, which was a quite amount, a pretty big difference less. And I asked Jack if I was going to play every day, and he said that I was going to be there every day, third baseman, and that Bobby Valentine was their manager, and he had heard good things about me. He managed a guy named Steve Buechele, who was with the Cubs when I was there, and Steve had talked to Bobby and said, "Bobby, we got this kid who needs to play," and so that was turned out to be my big break. So I said okay. I went and played in AAA again that year for Bobby in Norfolk, Virginia, and had the best year of my career. I hit 323 and led the league in doubles. And Bobby became fond of me. And then Bobby got the job up in New York, and that's when I got called up. So that was a good decision and a big break for me.
Yeah, a lot of relationships that you never know pan out, and you get be seen by one guy. Something happens. Next thing you know, that same guy says, "Hey, I've got a club over here, or I know somebody over there, and we can help you get to that next level."
Yeah.
That you always got to be friendly and kind and polite to everybody.
Right.
You never know who you're going to impress, and you obviously
That's
got
right.
a chance to do that.
Yeah, you're
And
taught that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, please
Well, I was
go
going to
ahead.
say you're taught that once you get into pro ball, I was playing for the Cubs, but I was theoretically playing for 29 other teams too, because every team is scouting every team.
Yeah.
So you go from one team doesn't have a spot for you, somebody else will have a spot for you.
And was that any time in your thought process, even just way in the back of your mind, I may not be good enough to? The reason I ask, Bob Mandeville, who is a friend of Greg Maddox's now, and Greg and Bob have done professional and personal things for years. He grew up in the organization with the Cubs, Double A ball. This is in the early to mid 80s. And they have some guy named Sean Dunston and a guy named Ryan Sandberg. And he's a middle infielder. And he knows I'm never going to get a chance to get up to the big club unless they get hurt. And that happens sometimes. So whether another organization, let's say the Padres or back then, who would it be? The Cardinals or Astros but he's not on that organization. He doesn't have anything to do with it. So you had the ability with the Cubs to be seen by some others. Were there times that you go, I'm playing really good right now. I could be with the Brewers, or I could be with you do your own scouting to go, who's got a need, who can play first or third, who needs a guy, a left-handed power hitter. Or you do your own agent work.
Yeah, I definitely had some of those times when I was, when I came up with the Cubs, there was Grace at first, and I thought there was an opening for me at third, but turned out there wasn't. And then, when I was with the Mets, I was playing behind Olerud and Zeal and Ventura, so I knew I was never, going to be a starting player there. And there were definitely thoughts of, man, I could be starting on the Mariners or the Brewers or something like that. But
Right.
I had a job to do in New York, and it was an honor to play for the Mets, and we had great teams, and I got to play in the postseason. I got to play in the World Series. So there's memories there that I wouldn't trade for the world. But I would have, looking back, I would have liked a shot to be a starter and play every day and see what I could have done for sure.
Well, 5 years in New York, there's obviously some great memories that you would have there. Some tough things that happened too. We're just one game out from winning the division or whatever. But you mentioned it was a good team, and there's a lot of great things that happened there. Talk a little bit about your Met experience and when you first get there, what it was like in Shea. I mean, that's another one of those great places in baseball history.
Yeah, Shea Stadium was a great place to play. We had great fans, and that was a great time. When I got called up, they were just starting to get good. 96, I was called up at the end of the season, and they were sort of in the playoff race. '97, I was there the whole year, and we were competitive. Didn't quite make it. '98, we got right there. Last game of the season, we were just building, building, building. And then wait, did we make the playoffs in '98? I think we might have finally made the playoffs. And then '99 and 2000, we were one of the best teams in the league, and I got to play in a couple division or NLCSs. '99, we had a great series with Atlanta and lost. And then 2000, we won and got to go to the World Series. So
was that the John Rocker series? Was that the Rocker series when John made a comment about the stubways and everybody just went ballistic on that?
No, that was a couple years before.
That was it earlier? Okay,
Yeah.
My fault. Go ahead.
No. We played. You know what? I think you're right. I remember that controversy. I don't remember that. Wow. I think you are right. That wasn't, because I remember Rocker was a big part of their team then. But I thought that controversy maybe had happened before. But I could be wrong. I think you may be right, actually.
Yeah.
Hey, Harper, let me say something.
Please do, Bob.
If you look at Matt's major league career, now how he was used, this tells you everything. The guy had a 267 lifetime batting average, okay? And that is like hitting the way he was used sporadically, not all the time starting. Baseball is timing. If a guy plays every day, he's going to hit better because he's used to it. But when you're in today, out tomorrow, pinch hitting today, doing that, to hit 267 is really, to me, says a lot. I just wanted to add that because everybody I talked to, Darrell Evans, everybody said Matt was a great hitter. They all told me that, and I think if he had played every day, wherever he went, I think he would have had a much higher average. I just wanted to put that in there.
Well, Bob, and also on top of that is most of my at-bats were against closers and late inning relievers who tend to have some of the best stuff. I didn't get a lot of.
He had a walk-off off Mariano Rivera. A walk-off off Mariano. That's true. And he hit a home run off Pedro Martinez to win the game.
Tied the game, but
no. Okay. So I was going to ask. And thank you for that, Bob. I appreciate that because as a 1 for 4 in a regular game, you're hitting 250. So you hit 267. So you're going to get a hit every 4 at bats, and occasionally you're going to get another one. And I understand that, but having to come off the bench somewhat cold in the 5th or 7th inning, or maybe even in the 8th or 9th, whatever. What was that like for you in terms of the mental preparation that you had to do, knowing I'm not going to play? Someone could get hurt or anything could happen, but really the way that the strategy of this game is going to be, I'm going to sit for the next 90 minutes before I'm going to start really getting loose again, right? Is that kind of the way that you had to prepare yourself?
Yeah. You get into a routine. On the Mets, we had, our bench players, we called ourselves the bench dogs. It was kind of cool. And we had a routine. About the 5th inning, we'd go up into the tunnel there and start getting loose and throwing each other some flips and hitting off the tee a little bit and come back into the dugout, and we'd start staying loose because we knew coming up in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, somebody would be going in for a defensive replacement here. I was the main left-handed pinch hitter off the bench, so as the game was unfolding, you could kind of see where your spot would be coming up, and of course the coaching staff and stuff would tell you to be ready. And, you usually more times than not, once that inning, once the top of the 8th is over, it comes into the bottom of the 9th, the pitcher's coming up 3rd that inning. They would come over and say, okay, you're, hitting 3rd, Matty. So you kind of have an idea of when it's coming. You can see how the game unfolds, but it's tough to stay loose.
Right. And there's a lot of if then, right? Well, what if they bring the righty in and you're going to go in? But if they go with the lefty, then you're not going to get called up and you're going to have to wait for another few minutes.
I actually got pinch hit for probably more than I pinch hit, because once I started having some success, every time I would come in to hit, they would bring in a left-handed pitcher to face me, and then Bobby would counteract and put in a right-handed. So I got pinch hit for a lot.
So you were in several games that you didn't even step out of the. Well, you had stepped out, and you're ready to step up to the plate, but you didn't get to the box.
That's right. A lot.
Hey, Harper, let me say this about all his major league career, everything. How about at the end of his major league career, he goes to Japan? Now, this said everything for me. He goes to Japan. He's a rock star there. He makes the all-star team, hits over 300. And that's as we know today, that Japanese baseball ain't no slouchy baseball. You know what I mean? I mean, in other words, he kicked ass over there. And that said a lot to me about once he had the opportunity to play every day, you know? Everybody needs to play every day in baseball, you know, to really have an opportunity, you know.
It's see ball, hit ball, right, Matt?
Yep.
It's no different if you're in another continent or whatever. Let's go there for a moment. What was it like for you from a cultural standpoint, where you can't speak the language, or unless you can, and so getting to the subway to get to a stadium or to meet somebody, what was that like for you? Was there a brief panic attack while you were still learning to be in Japan and learn to just live your life and get from the apartment to the stadium to a bite to eat to grocery store, all the stuff that you have to do? Explain some of that to somebody who's never been to Japan and doesn't understand the baseball equivalent there.
It would have been impossible to survive without my translator Bori, who I love dearly and I'm very fond of. I had my own personal translator with me because the language barrier and the culture over there is they do not speak a word of English, not a single word. So ordering food, getting around, getting on the subway and all that it's impossible. But by the end of my time there, I played there 3 years. I had picked up a few words and I could get around the subway and stuff. But yeah, it was a big time culture shock walking off the airplane there. They don't they don't speak a word of English. It's not like going to Mexico or somewhere you can kind of get by.
Yeah. Trevor Bauer had, after he got in trouble, he went to Japan and he started doing some shows. And it really opened up my mind to just how difficult it is for a player. All you got to do is just show up at the stadium. Yeah, easier said than done. There are so many other things about just living your life and where, like I said, where do you get a bite? And they eat differently. Where do I get furniture? Where do I find dishes? You know, things like you just the initial move. But Bore, you said, is that the name of your?
Call Bore. That's all you got to do.
Really? Okay. And there are people there to help you for obvious reasons. But getting a single, it's okay. Getting a single in a big game and driving in a run to win, people cheer regardless, right? They don't care where you're from. They just you're wearing the uniform.
Yeah, it was great playing there. Like Bob said, I was a rock star over there, man. They love their baseball and they love American baseball, and the team was great. I felt welcomed from the first day. I loved playing over there. The fans were fantastic. The fans took a liking to me, and I loved my time over there. My older son Nate, was born over there. That was a great experience. I really enjoyed my time in Japan. The food was awesome too.
Yeah.
Traveling, great. Everything was great.
Yeah. We'll talk about Kobe beef a little bit later, but yeah, you start to salivate thinking how good some of that stuff is. But Ichiro was over here at that time, and I'm sure there are folks that are watching Mariners baseball, and you got to see it in a different way. Some really good players that just needed a chance that might make it over in the States, but they were icons in Japanese baseball.
Yeah. There's a ton of players over there that could play here. A lot of them just don't want to. They don't want to leave home.
Yeah.
The baseball's very good over there, especially the pitching. The pitching is right up to par with the States, and so are most of the players. The difference is they're just not as big and strong over there. The talent's the same. Everybody throws just as hard and they run as fast, and all the skill level is the same. They're just not quite as big and strong as the players over here. Some of them are.
Absolutely. There's a few, but more slappers, would you say, on average, right? Guys that are just going to put the ball in play, right. And if they squeak out a single out of it, terrific. If not, it's a different type of power that they would have. But explain for those that don't understand, and I haven't seen it personally, but I'm well aware of the fans, and it's almost a European soccer type thing where there's cheers and there's flags being waved and there's certain celebrations that go on during the game in the third inning that are different from what they do in the fifth. And talk about how that was different for you as well.
Yeah, that was fun. The fans are crazy over there. I had every player has a song that so the way it works in Japan is you basically have a cheering section, and these people, they travel with you on the road. So when you're on the road, the entire left field bleachers is designated for the road team. So when what they do over there is when the road team is up, out of respect, the rest of the stadium kind of sits down and is quiet, and your section totally has the floor, and they're just screaming and yelling for you. And it's the same thing when you're at home, but when you're at home, your cheering section is much bigger. So I had 40,000 people singing a song with my name in it. It was pretty fun.
and I would imagine now you better come through and get a hit, right? You can't have a bad throwing error. That you got to shut everybody up. And I'm teasing with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
When did you know that you had been accepted? Well, you get on the roster, right, in 2004, but nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a little different over there because I was accepted right away because it's a big deal signing an American. So it wasn't like I had to go over there and make the team or any of that. I was there and they knew who I was. They knew I was going to be playing every day. I was a little concerned how I would be accepted by the teammates and the coaches because I wasn't really sure about that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have asked for anything better. I love those guys. I love playing with them. I love the coaches. They took me in right away. And I had a great experience. I was actually named team captain, which is rare for an American to be named over there. And yeah, I love those guys.
Was there a specific point that you can early in the season where you came through and delivered and brought in a run or did something like that to where now I'm more deserving of the respect that they're giving me?
That's a good question. I remember, wanting to make a statement early on, and it was pretty early in the year, maybe our second road trip or something. And we were down by a couple runs, and I hit a 3-run home run in the 9th inning, and we ended up winning that game. And that was kind of a big deal. And I remember feeling like, okay, that was big, a little weight off the shoulders.
Let's go, Franco. They probably have a little cheer that they have, and again they bring flags and they've got banners and instruments, right? They bring in horns and all kinds of stuff that
everything
is completely different than American baseball. I would imagine coming back and going to an American or U.S. game, even a major league level game, there can be some great excitement. Don't get me wrong, but the fanfare is completely different.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smaller stadiums too, right? And is the field smaller also a little bit? Is it 10 feet or 10 meters smaller in the way that the stadiums are designed? Or is each one of them, very unique and like Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park?
Yeah, no, the stadiums are pretty much up to speed like they are here. And they're big, there's 50,000 people at those games. It's very similar here. There's a couple of older ballparks that are a little bit smaller. The Hanshin Tigers comes to mind. Their ballparks, it's like a Fenway Wrigley type thing. It's been there since the late 1800s or something. And
wow,
that ballpark was a little smaller. And the Tokyo Dome is pretty small. That's a very hitter's ballpark. But the other stadiums are just normal stadiums that hold 50,000 people.
I mentioned Ichiro. Let's talk Shohei for just a second. How big internationally has he become? And you know better because you've been there and know just how big of a superstar he is just in Japan. Just give a description of just how is there any athlete? Would Wayne Gretzky be the equivalent of a hockey player that is as big as what Shohei has become for baseball in Japan?
No, not even close.
Wow.
Ichiro was even though Ichiro was in the States, he's like a god over there. As you see his picture everywhere, and I can't even imagine the fanfare that Otani has in Japan. It must be just incredible. It's different over there. They hold their players on a much higher pedestal than they do here.
Yeah. Even though he's getting well paid here, there are folks there that, sponsorships and advertisements. Uh, he could make any amount of money that he wants to just by saying yes or no to any commercial. Or, I mean, I only see him in the New Balance commercials that they have right now here in the States. I don't know what else he's doing from a U.S. perspective, but back there in Japan, he could pitch anything. And
Can't even imagine what he's doing.
yeah, it's incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to you in New York,
Okay.
if you don't mind me doing so, because
No.
you're in the epicenter, but you're also having to deal with and fight against the Yankees, and then you have the Subway Series. So there's so many interesting aspects of you being a part of that organization at that time. One thing I did notice, and while I was taking some time to put my slideshow together, Mets had a lot of different uniform colors. We went with the black at home sometimes. You'd have a blue at home jersey. You had the all whites with no pinstripes. Then you had the pinstripes. You're like the Oakland A's of your time. Better color selection, but that must have been kind of cool. Like, which jersey are we going to wear today?
Yeah, that was always exciting what jerseys we were going to wear. We had 3 or 4 uniforms. I think our road uniforms we only had the grays, but at home, yeah, we had the pinstripes, we had the black on white, we had the white with the no pinstripes and the blue trim. We had 3 or 4 uniforms, and that was always pretty cool. And a lot of times we would decide what to wear. The players would, when we got good and we'd get hot or something, we would tell the team what we would wear. And when we first started, we just wore what they said, and that was kind of fun.
Well, and it's also kind of cool when other teams that you go against go, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm sorry, I put the Mariano Rivera there. Do you want to go over that one? Because that's got to be a really interesting piece of baseball history with you going against this guy right here.
Yeah, I went against him a couple times. You mentioned the World Series. He struck me out to end Game 4 of the 2000 World Series, so he got a little revenge on what I got off him in 1999.
Yeah. There are people that talk about how his cutter was, incredible. I would watch from behind in the camera that is in center field, or just off on left center side, and I don't see the ball moving. I just see it looks like a fastball. Tell me what that's like for you, especially as a lefty, knowing that the ball is going to break, but I don't see it. So how much is the ball moving where it's not a curveball? It's not but it comes out of his hand, and you're seeing a fastball that's on the outside portion of the plate. By the time you start swinging, is it over the middle?
Yeah, exactly.
Or does it just move 2 inches? Tell me a little bit about what that experience is like for you.
Well, yeah. So the base hit I got off him, yeah, it moved 1 inch or 2 inches. His normal cutter would probably move 5 to 6 inches. And the thing about it was when he was in his prime, he was throwing 98, 99 miles an hour, and his ball just had this incredible. Not only did it cut a lot, what made Mariano special was when it cut. A lot of cutters kind of start cutting, maybe I'd say when they're halfway to the plate or 3/4 of the way to the plate, and you can kind of start to see it start cutting. Mariano's would cut literally at the last possible second, and you would just swear that you were putting it on the barrel, and next thing you know, you're picking your bat up in pieces.
Yeah.
You knew it was coming, and everybody knew what was coming. That's what made him so incredible. Was everybody knew what he was going to throw, and they still couldn't hit it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're catching for him, Girardi didn't even have to put a signal down, right? Because he just throw it. You're going to throw. Yeah. The thing about this picture, I don't know if you can see it clearly enough, Matt, is where his thumb is on the baseball. There are some pitchers that have the ability, and I guess in batting practices and while you're fielding and doing some other things, that you get to talk about, certain things that secrets of the game, so to speak. How much of a difference just moving your thumb from a normal position like this on a baseball, moving it to there can make the ball move just enough to where now you've got a very unique pitch. Is that something you guys would all talk about as hitters? You know, you get together. What are we going to do here?
Not so much the thumb, but I think it's one of those things that I'm sure many people have tried to put their thumb just like that and couldn't quite repeat what Mariano did. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if it was his thumb or not, but I'm assuming that a lot of people have said, "Let me try that thumb thing," and haven't seen too many Marianos since him.
Hey, Harper, let me say this. I've been watching baseball since before both you guys were born, okay? Mm-hmm. And I got to honestly say, you know, I've seen Warren Spahn and Koufax, and I know relief pitchers are in a different category. He's definitely the greatest relief pitcher in the history of baseball that there ever will be. There'll never be anybody. He's the Babe Ruth of pitchers in relief. But you got to say he's one of the greatest pitchers of all time, period, because I have never seen anybody, like Matt said, everybody knew what he had and nobody could hit him. I've never seen that before. I'd say Greg Maddux was a little somewhat, but this guy was unhittable. And that's why, I don't know, if you ask Matt, is your greatest thrill in your career hitting a walk-off home run off that guy? Is that your greatest thrill, Mac? It's got to be.
Well, it wasn't a home run, but yeah, it's definitely my greatest thrill.
Walk-off hit. He got a walk-off hit. It's on YouTube. It's terrific.
Yeah, that was definitely my biggest moment and biggest thrill because
that guy was
at that time it was game over. No one could hit Mariano. I think I broke. I didn't. We broke the streak of they had won 170 something games with taking a lead into the ninth inning before that in a row.
I always said Joe Torre when he went in the Hall of Fame, he should have had Mariano Rivera's picture next to him on the plaque.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Well, Jeter and about 12 other guys would also ask to be a part of it as well. They were a really good club. But
without him, he was the stopper. All those other guys are Hall of Fame players, great. But I never saw anybody that could just shut you down like this guy.
Yeah. And Matt, do me a favor. I mean, you're standing 60 feet away from him. He's not the most physically imposing guy you've ever seen. He's not like Randy Johnson, let's say, or even Clemens, right? Clemens is a big dude, right? Roger was a 6'3", 220, if not a little heavier, and especially near the end of his career. And what was it about Mark? What was it? His ability to just consistently, with that skinny little arm of his, but just hit 98 in a way that it's a different 98 than other guys are throwing. Is there some truth to that? It's just
it's totally different. And you mentioned Greg Maddux, and I think that's a good analogy a little bit because, well, first of all, he's the opposite of Greg Maddux because what made Greg so tough is you had no idea what he was throwing. He had 7, 8 different pitches. He could make his fastball go this way, that way. He could throw a changeup or curveball on any count. So that's what made him so good. But also what made Greg so effective, the same thing as Mariano, is what we call late movement. All pitchers have some movement on the ball, but they give you a little bit of time so you can kind of tell where it's going. Maddux and Mariano, their movement on their ball was so late that it was too late for you to make the adjustment as a hitter. So you had already gone to where you thought the ball was going to go, and then at the last possible second, it would dive off either way. That's why you don't see a lot of balls hit off the barrel off those guys because they're so good at making the ball move late.
Your adjustment.
Thanks
your
for
adjustment.
Matt.
Yeah. Great. As a hitter, Matt, your adjustment is I do want to barrel up on this guy. I want to hit from the label out, but not to the end of the bat. And by the time you start that swing and the connection, and again, this is at 98 miles an hour, you don't have time to do anything other than just put your bat out where you think it's going to be. And next thing you know, the ball's either not there, right? It's going to drop. With Greg, he could throw a fastball that would drop straight down, but the other one would break into you and another one would break away from you. That's what I mean. That's my understanding of what you mean when you say we have no idea where that ball is going to end up, right? Because it comes out.
Hit the nail on the head. Maddux and Mariano's ball was not where you thought it was going to be a lot. whereas the other guys, it wasn't so much.
Greg is known as a cerebral pitcher where he's thinking, all right, I know what you're expecting me to throw, so I'm not going to throw that. And then there are other times where I go, I know you're expecting me to throw it, and that's exactly what you're going to get. He said it once, I think he wanted to put on his plaque in Cooperstown. I threw more batting practice fastballs to get guys out than any other pitch I threw. Because you're not expecting it. But with Mariano, you are expecting it, but it's just, I guess, the location of it and when it breaks. He knew that you were going to swing at it here, right? What was his process in your mind's eye of how he was going to try to get you out?
Honestly, I think Mariano just said, "Here it comes, buddy. Good luck."
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And he had great control too. So, he had that cutter, but he would throw it on the inside part of the plate or the inside corner where you swore it was a strike and you had to swing at it. And by the time you swung, it was this far inside.
Yeah.
And Maddox was good at that too, is they just he had that great sinking fastball where he would just kind of start it out there and out there and out there and just nibble that corner. And then before you know, he's got you swinging at a ball that's a foot outside because he just keeps chasing you out there.
Did you ever have any argument where Maddox is throwing one and it's a called strike and it's this far outside? There's no way, but the umpire has already said, no, I got to give it to him. What's your argument with that? Because you don't want to get in trouble with the umpire, or maybe you do, but some guys don't because their next at bat, does the umpire give you the inside portion of the plate or does the 17.5-inch plate now become 22 inches?
A 17-inch plate now becomes 25 inches. And please don't get me started on umpires. I was having such a nice day.
Okay. We'll ring it back in again. Please, let's do that.
No, yeah, Maddox and Glavin and those guys, they played the umpires like fools. And, umpires back in my day, they didn't have that pitch strike zone thing. So there was no accountability. And they would start the game on the outside corner, and by the 7th, 8th inning, they're giving them pitches that are 6 inches off the plate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Hey, Darrell Evans used to always tell me, he says, I don't care if an umpire is horseshit. He said, I don't care, but be consistent. In other words, don't call a pitch way up here a strike. And then he said a lot of the ones that bothered him, the ones that were not, once an umpire's strike zone, but a lot of them weren't consistent. Right, Matt?
Yeah, that's true too, but I don't know. I disagree with that. The strike zone's the strike zone. The plate's the plate. There's no excuse to be calling balls that far off the plate, in my opinion.
Yeah. If you were a commissioner for a day, is there anything that you would like to see done in the first hour of your administration to where you go, there's a glaring hole in the game that it can be improved, it should be improved, but nobody's doing it. Is there anything like that you can think of off the top of your head that would make baseball even better?
Well, they're starting to do it now. And my first thing years ago, if I'd have done it, I would have come up with a system to hold umpires accountable. They had no accountability. I don't know their accountability now, but they were, I would have had a system in play to get those umpires back in the strike zone.
Yeah. Well, instant replay and the technology of having a couple of extra cameras at every game. And back in the 90s, right, that not every team had every game that was broadcast. Maybe there were a few organizations that did. But now because of the ability to download and watch any play, any game, any time, there are more cameras there. And I think you get a better view of what's going on. So they are held accountable by technology. Are you okay with that?
I'm good that they have that strike zone thing up there now. Yeah, because it shows you how bad they're missing those pitches that are off the plate. But if you're just watching a game on TV, a pitch that's 3 inches outside looks like a good pitch on live TV.
Right.
You need that box there to show that it was 3 inches outside.
Yeah.
And now that they have that, the umpires have reined themselves in. So the strike zone's a lot smaller than it used to be. Rightfully so.
It is smaller, I think. There are times where the catcher doesn't move his glove and they call it a ball because it was expected to be on another side of the plate. Do you have an issue?
That's wrong too.
I know. Yeah.
For every strike that's called a ball, there's 100 balls that are called strikes.
Okay.
In my experience.
Yeah, fair enough. And would you have an issue with the Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve differentiation of strike zones? Does Aaron Judge deserve and demand a bigger strike zone because he's 6'7"?
Of course.
Yeah,
Not the plate. The plate's the same. The width of the
agreed.
plate's the same. But
Right,
the
but the
strike
height,
zone is whatever you define the strike zone as is fine with me. I don't know what it is. It's from the bottom of the chest to the bottom of the kneecaps or whatever you decide is the height of it. That's fine. But the plate is the plate.
right?
To me, the plate's there for a reason. I don't care if the ball's a quarter of an inch outside. It's outside. If you want to make the plate wider, we can debate that, but just call the plate.
Yeah. At least from the vertical, aspect of it. The horizontal would be bottom of knees, top of the knees. When I was a kid in Little League, it was from the knees to the shoulders. That's
Yeah.
never going to be in the big leagues ever again.
Yeah.
Some say it's the letters. Now it's the belt for some.
Yeah,
for some folks.
I would agree with raising the strike zone a little bit. I think some balls that are called high should be called strikes, honestly. So I'm okay with, as a hitter, I'd be okay with them raising it up higher. But the width is where I have the problem. You can't be calling pitches that are 3 inches off the plate because as a hitter, you're taught to stay in your strike zone.
Yeah.
And when you see that ball, your brain instantly tells you no, that ball's outside. So it's hard to make the adjustment. But back to Bob's point, if you got one of those umpires that is going to call that pitch 3 inches outside, then you just have to expand your strike zone. But I don't know. To me, that's not a good argument. Just call the plate.
Yeah, it completely changes your strategy to where I got to foul this ball away because it's not a ball I want to hit. My
Right.
brain has already told me I know what is middle, and I know what's outside edge and inside edge, and if it's not there, then I'm not going to swing at it. But then you get rung up and strike three. Are you kidding me?
Right.
So you got to change. And would you have? I know every player has a little card that they bring out with them onto the field that says, okay, for this guy, play him a little bit further towards left field or, back up 3 steps. Is there a card that also exists for who's behind home plate and what you guys need to know from a strategy, from a scouting perspective?
Yeah, we didn't have those cards. We had team meetings on how we were going to play the hitters and how we were going to approach the pitchers. But yeah, we knew who was behind the plate, and they have reputations. Which I always hated. Always a pitcher's umpire. He's a hitter's umpire. Give me a break. You're a freaking umpire. There's no such thing as a pitcher's umpire or a hitter's umpire. Call the strike zone. That always used to drive me crazy.
It's too bad that it doesn't bother you anymore.
Yeah, I'm still. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Maddox and Smoltz, Glavine, of course. You got to be their teammate here in Atlanta for a couple of years. Talk a little bit about your time here with the Braves and Bobby Cox. I know everybody says he's a great players manager. Coming from Bobby Valentine, or you mentioned Rigland a little bit earlier. Give me your perspective on what it was like coming to an organization that was as successful as they were here in Atlanta.
Yeah, that was great. It was a little weird at first getting traded when I remember my first day walking into spring training, or when I found out that I had gotten traded over to the Braves, that I was like, you got to be kidding me. Any team but the Braves, because the last couple of years in New York, that was our arch rival, was Atlanta. Yeah. So there was a little bit of bad blood there, but baseball in its true fashion, they welcomed me right away, and I became a Brave immediately. So the transition was great. The organization was great. Players were great. Maddox and Smoltz, awesome guys. Great, Hall of Famers. Glavine, I got to play golf with those guys. It was a great team to play for. I'm still disappointed. We won 100 games both years I was in Atlanta in 2002 and 2003. We were the best team in baseball by a mile, and we lost in the first round of the playoffs both years. It was heartbreaking. But yeah, I enjoyed my time in Atlanta. Bobby Cox was good to me, yeah, that was fun to play for such a great team for a couple years. I wish we could have gone a little farther into the postseason and maybe won a ring, but it was a great experience.
Yeah, there are a lot of Mark Lemke. I worked with him when I first got into the radio business, and there's almost where you shake your head, where how do we only win one with that team, that lineup, that group? Just the pitchers alone was a solid enough group that you should go deep into the playoffs every year, right? And
Yeah.
it's just basically if a guy gets a big hit here or there, next thing you know, you're winning these games 6-1 instead of losing 3-2. You know what I mean? There's just it was a good lineup, and I'm not saying your lineup in New York wasn't also equally good, but you knew the guys, and you knew that this guy can play, this guy can play, Chipper can play. Andrew Jones was amazing. Um, no one knows how to put a finger on it other than it must be Atlanta because the whole city's just been waiting for a champion for years.
Yeah, it's a little surprising they didn't win more World Series, but it's that's baseball, and I think that's a testament to baseball that at that level, um, the difference between the best team in the league winning 100 games and losing 100 games, the good team over the bad team is still only going to win 6 out of 10. So the worst team in the league is still going to beat the best team in the league 4 times out of 10. And then you cut that down to you got the best teams in the playoffs. The It's such razor thin, and you're playing a 7-game series. I mean, anything can happen. It's a pitch there, it's an error there. It's so fine tuned that the ball just didn't bounce their way. But it is surprising that they didn't have more championships with those teams and that pitching. That's for sure.
Yeah, they had some amazing memories that they put together from a baseball perspective that a historian would say they were right there. Like Greg Norman. Greg Norman finished second in the Masters and finished second in the U.S. Open and finished second. The Braves, it seemed like they were really good at finishing second in the NL and just not being able to get over that hump.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But good memories, obviously, here in Atlanta.
Well,
I
they
think
won. They won, and I was part of that. I don't know, we won our 12th or 13th division National League West title in a row.
Yeah,
I mean that's crazy.
Yeah, how good they were and all that. And then after that, then you go to Japan. We mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Did you start feeling a little bit slower, a little bit older? Did you have more difficult times getting ready for the next game because of the aches and pains or something like that? When did you start feel like they're going to have some younger kids that are going to come in here and start trying me out for my position?
My last year there, the year I retired.
Really?
Yeah, it happened. I felt great up until about halfway through that season, and I kind of remember it happening overnight. I went to the ballpark one day. Seemed like the guy was hitting the ground balls to me a little harder. The BP guy was throwing a little harder. All of a sudden in the games, I was a little late on fastballs and swinging at some bad pitches, and I don't know. I couldn't seem to get quite loose, and I just my body gave out on me when I was. Didn't give out on me, but I could definitely feel my skill set diminishing a little bit, and I knew that the end was coming soon because you don't have room to lose much of your skill set at that level before some young kids ready to take your job.
Matt, what was the non-playing regiment like for you in terms of, were you more of a stretcher? Did you like to lift in the gym? Did you like to do isometric stuff? What kept you sharp to the point where you felt really good? Did you run a lot or did you not run as much? What was best for you?
I was kind of old school in that regard. I did a lot. I did most of my training. It's different now, and it started to change when I was playing. But I don't know. I didn't like working out during the season. So I did my work on the field. I took a ton of ground balls. I took a ton of batting practice. I took a ton of batting practice. I was always doing extra BP in that because I felt like I wanted to fine tune that. Looking back, I wish I would have taken a little better care of my body, and kept a workout program going through the season. I think that would have helped me finish stronger. I know the last month or two of the season were kind of my numbers would start to go down. I would start getting tired. Looking back, I wish I would have put a little more into my in-season program, and we'll probably get into it, but I probably could have stayed out of the bars a little bit more too.
Sure.
That didn't help when I was younger. That didn't seem to be a problem at all, but I could notice that was starting to affect me a little bit there at the end too.
Before we go there, Tony Oliva, who was on with us last week, said he didn't like pitching machines. They're great for some, but for him, he wanted to see the ball, even if it was a fastball, it would move differently. And to get to see breaking balls, and even if they're not coming at 95 miles an hour, but just having someone that he could trust that could throw. He wanted a live arm all the time. Was that something that was important for you too?
Totally agree with that. I would get in the cage occasionally and hit off the machine just to like crank it up so it was throwing like 110 miles an hour or something like that, so I could maybe just work on getting as quick as I could. But to really work on hitting, you want to see the ball coming out of the hand for sure.
Yeah, and the rotation and everything like that.
Yeah.
And again, this is split second stuff, right? You knew is between the ball leaving the fingers and maybe 10 feet, you know if it's a curveball, you know if it's going to be a slider, or now they call them sweepers. Your ability to pick that up almost instantaneously. You've been trained to do that. This is part of what you do.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think that's where the ability comes in. It's hard to coach that or teach that. I think that's something that the gifted hitters are kind of born with that. There's just something that their eyes see and their brain computes, that they just know what it is, and they know. See, the thing about hitting is it takes you a while to swing the bat, right? So you actually swing the bat when the ball is 20, 30 feet away. So your brain is computing where, and more importantly, when that ball is going to be there. So you're actually swinging to a spot where an object's going to be. Kind of what we talked about earlier, which made Mariano and Maddox so good, is they would trick you on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very cerebral thing. It's a lot of instincts involved, a lot of batting practice, a lot of working on where you're picking up the ball out of the pitcher's hand and stuff like that. It's a lot of practice.
Matt, be a coach with me for a second. You've got kids. I have kids. When I would explain things, there's a rhythm when the pitcher's foot, when his, let's say he's a right-handed pitcher, when his left foot hits the ground, that's when you want to start, or at least begin the process of loading and starting moving your weight forward so that you can be ready. Tell me where I'm wrong.
You're way too late.
Really?
Yeah, you need to start moving a long time before his left foot hits the ground.
Okay.
So that it's actually a great question, and this is another thing that takes a lot of practice to find your timing, but you need to give yourself more time than you think. So a good analogy for what you use with your left foot being down, I would take it to where as soon as you see that pitcher take his hand out of the glove, so they're like this, right? As soon as you see that separation, that's when you need to kind of start your process.
Okay.
And then you kind of do a dance with him. And what you really want to look for is you need your front foot to be down. So you have to get your stride and all that completed. That front foot needs to be down before the ball's about halfway to the plate.
That makes sense. So is it fair to say that when a pitcher separates the ball from his glove and begins is almost every pitcher just about the same in terms of the time that it takes for them to get their arm back and then to go forward? Maybe a little bit of a difference, but at least from a timing perspective.
Roughly the same. Yeah.
Okay.
They're all a little, there's nuances in there, but it's about the same.
Yeah. And what do you think of the guys that have real high kicks? Justin Turner is one of the guys. So Dodger third baseman for years, with the big beard and everything like that. He had a high kick. You didn't have a high kick. So that it worked for him. But, how do you express from his perspective, what is he trying to accomplish in getting that leg way up in the air and then planting and then rotating your hips from there and getting your arms moving forward and through the zone?
Yeah, I was always tinkering with that. I tried the high leg kick. It felt good sometimes. So the way I worked was I was always, something would feel really good and then it wouldn't feel so good. So I would try something. So I was always kind of tinkering with stuff like that. My leg kick varied on heights. later in my career, I ended up not doing the leg kick at all, and I just did a little toe tap for timing. But
Okay.
it's all timing. It's what feels good, because you know when your timing's right, because everything slows down a little bit. You're on time and you can see the ball. If the pitcher if everything looks kind of fast and you're not really picking up the ball that good, it's because your timing's off. And more times than not, you're late getting that front foot down.
Okay.
But the thing with the high leg kick is, if your foot gets down in time, it can feel great. You just have to obviously give yourself more time to do that. And it's a little bit more moving parts. So,
What's the
you're
goal? What's the goal or objective to someone who's never been a high kicker? Do you get more power? Do you get what's the advantage of that versus just doing a slide and just getting that foot in the ground so you can just start moving your I would call it the entirety of your leg. Your feet push down in the ground, your ankles turn a little bit, your knees follow that, your hips follow, and next thing you know, your hands are going through. That's a timing perspective, but there's a little bit different strength or power. What does the leg kick provide you that is better than what the normal or traditional swing would be?
Yeah, you kind of know it. A little more power,
Okay.
a little more energy, a little more load, a little more inertia going into it. So you got more. Um, I don't know, energy is the right word, but you kind of nailed it. It's all starts from the ground up, and they call it sequential unlocking. Your foot to your ankle to your knee to your hips, your hands. What comes last? But yeah, the leg kick kind of, I don't know. It gives you a little more of a load. I would call it,
Yeah.
but it does create more moving parts. So your timing, how you've got to be more aware of your timing when you get started, and it can create problems. And for me, I think if I would have been when I got to Japan, I had kind of got away from the leg kick, so I was into something different. But when I started pinch hitting, I had to get my leg kick lower because my timing wasn't as good. Like Bob was saying, when you're in there every day, you're in this sort of rhythm, and when you're just getting one at bat here and there, it was difficult for me to get my timing down with the leg kick.
Yeah. They say Cal Ripken at one point, while playing 162 games every season, would have 162 different batting stances.
Yeah.
Did you ever have more than one that you go? I'm going to go against this batter, or excuse me, this pitcher as a batter who is going to be a little bit different than I would be against the lefty that's going to come in the seventh inning. Would you have different stances for different pitchers?
No, but I would have different stances from day to day, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I would pick something in batting practice that day that felt good, and I would use that no matter who came in. But that was only certain times. More times than not, I was doing my normal things. But whenever something didn't quite feel right, I'd say, let me try my hands up here higher, or let me try my stance a little open or a little closed, or let me get a little closer to the plate, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I would do that, but I never switched from pitcher to pitcher.
Pete said once when he was asked by A-Rod on that MLB network, you've probably seen it.
Hmm.
Um, Pete, what would you do if you were in a slump? A-Rod says to him, he goes, "Oh, I was never in a slump, but I would do one of six things. I would move in closer to the plate or back away from the plate. I'd move back in the box or I'd move up in the box, depending on what I'd choke up on the bat or I'd choke down on the bat. You have a major league swing. Don't change your swing. What you need to do is just make some adjustments to either see the ball. If it's a curveball, if I need to get it before it breaks, I'm going to move up in the box. If I need to see it a little bit longer, I'm going to move back." Are those some things that are tips that are generally universally accepted everywhere?
Yeah, I love that. I think he's spot on there. You don't want to be tinkering with your swing. Your swing is your swing. You've been doing it since you were a kid. If you're going to do a swing change, you need to do that in the off season. You can do little tinkering things during the season, but there's so much stuff going on in that bat and when you're hitting, that if you're thinking about your swing, you got no chance.
Yeah.
So you make your swing is your swing, and make little adjustments. I wish I had heard that sooner. I loved what he said about moving a little closer to the pitcher or further away from the pitcher,
Right.
because what it does is it changes your angles a little bit. And I
Yeah.
remember I would get in ruts where I was hitting the ball good, but it was just going right at people. And all I had to do, if I was a 6 inch, not even 3 inches say closer to the pitcher, I would catch that ball a little bit more out in front. So now instead of going right to the second baseman, it might find the hole.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that till later in my career. I generally always stood in the same place in the box. I might close my stance or open my stance, but I love what he said about moving a little bit closer to the pitcher or further back. I thought that
Yeah.
was great. I wish I'd have heard that earlier in my
I
career.
know. And then against like Rivera or Maddox, the ball hasn't broken quite as much if you're a little bit closer to him or if you're further back, right? And that's the cat and mouse game that they're playing. They know if you're going to move up or back in the box.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
they
No,
know the pitch to respond to that.
Maddox watched that kind of stuff. So he would. I don't think most pitchers would notice if you moved up 3 inches closer to him. Maddox for sure would, and he
Yeah.
would make that adjustment. But yeah, you mentioned choking up on the bat. That is something that I did frequently. Guys that, especially Mariano, I never choked up on a bat as far as I did when I was facing Mariano. So I
Really?
knew he was going to jam me with that inside cutter. Guys who like to throw me inside, I would choke up a little bit, you know.
Okay.
So I tinkered with where I held the bat for sure.
Yeah. And would you move 2 inches away from the plate if you knew that was coming? Not a whole lot, but just, protect against the outside.
Yeah.
But now I might get a little bit more barrel on it if he tries to go inside on me.
Yeah, see, I didn't really do that. I liked where I stood in the
Okay.
box because, like what we said, I didn't want my strike zone to change. You know, if like Mariano, it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I could move 100 feet off the plate, and he would still throw it right here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of need to keep the plate where it doesn't do me any good to back off the plate. You know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. But that, yeah, for you that, but for Cal Ripken, he might. So no,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I do
No,
against
yeah, for
certain
sure.
people. Yeah.
For sure.
Were there times
Yeah.
you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I'm sorry if I'm dwelling on this too long. Please forgive me.
No,
But
no.
there are
Talk
some
about hitting all
aspects
day.
of I'm not feeling as strong today, so I might go with a little bit lighter bat. Did you have multiple? And other days, man, I feel like $1,000,000. I'm fresh. My legs feel great. I got a massage yesterday. Everything is absolutely, man, I'm ready to roll. Where you would go, not maybe with a heavier bat, but you know what I'm saying? There are different ways with it. This is my livelihood, this bat that I have right here. Would you switch those out depending on how you felt?
I didn't. I know
Okay.
a lot of guys who did. Definitely had days where I felt better than others, but I don't know. My bat was my bat. If I picked up something different that wasn't my bat, it would instantly not feel right. It might feel my bat feels a little heavy today or this and that, but it was my bat, and I would just make that adjustment. So I know guys who use different types of bats off different pitchers and how they're feeling. There's definitely those guys. I was an M110, 34-inch, 32 ounce. I didn't waver from my tool. I liked it.
It was the same one, right? Hillrich or
That's not
Bradsby,
entirely
Adirondack?
true. I had other models that I would use, but very, very rarely.
All right.
Always 34, 32 though. Every bat
Okay.
I ever had.
Before we move on, I got to ask, were there ever times where you would trade out a jersey or a hat or a bat with another player and go, hey, man, I really love this stick you got. This is really cool. I'm going to put this in my no?
No, and I wish I would have. God, you brought up another thing. Yeah, I should have been doing a lot of that. I have some bats that I have from teammates that I played with that I like, but man, if I could go back, I'd be swapping out bats with everybody.
Well, the fact that you've got a Lou Gehrig bat in your kitchen that you ended up giving to the Hall of Fame, I bet everybody wanted your stuff, right? Thank you, Bing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, thanks, Bing. Yeah, there was also a bat in there that was signed by the entire team. 1941 New York Yankees, signed by the team. That was the other bat that he had. Pretty cool.
That was in your house.
Yeah. Yep.
You never played wiffle ball with any of those, though, did you?
No, not with those. They were too heavy.
Yeah, they were truly. Yeah, when you're 6 or 7 years old. All right.
Yeah.
Amazing. How many bats were there that you ended up auctioning off?
There were, I don't know, 4 or 5 bats. I remember a Babe Dahlgren bat, but the two that were special were Lou Gehrig's last home run and the team bat.
Were they Hillrich and Bradsby's? Do you remember?
Yep. Yeah, they were.
That's all they had back then.
I know. Yeah. And the color, the wood itself, I mean, I've got a couple that I've collected over the years. They're in another room, but I've got a Bernard Gilkey bat.
I love Bernard. I played with Bernard in New York. He's a
It's my
great guy.
favorite bat. Just the way that it's a bat.
Yeah.
Now they dip them in paint, and you can't even tell anymore. And
every player has a different brand today, though. Marucci, this, that.
Yeah.
Very few use Louisville Sluggers anymore. But in the old days, it was 95% H&B and then 5% Adirondack, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now there's 20 different kinds of bats.
Yeah, different companies have now. And Reggie swung an Adirondack. We were supposed to have Reggie Jackson on. We weren't able to have that. And the picture of him in a Yankee uniform, well, even with the A's, when he's swinging and his legs are all over the place, and he's in the bat's straight up in the air, and you just remember seeing that stripe. It's a little bit thicker than other things, but they put the stripe.
You know what Mike Schmidt did with the Phillies? Mike Schmidt had a contract with Adirondack, a signature contract. But he actually used H&B, block letter Schmidt.
Did he really?
He would get red tape and put it around the H&B bat, so on TV it looked like an Adirondack with a red tape around.
Oh my gosh! Little sneaky things. Tiger had a Nike deal, and then he stopped wearing Nike, or he stopped using Nike golf clubs. Where are you taking us, Matt?
Well, excuse me, I gotta go because I remember I had my phone and I just heard my bat. So I want my battery to run out in the middle of this.
Okay, yeah, I know. We're getting warnings. Well, life is pretty good in the big leagues until you go to the bar and you're there a little bit longer than what you need to be. Talk a little bit about some of the bad stuff that happened, and your recognition of realizing that I may be drinking myself a little bit more than I should.
Yeah, my drinking was fairly innocent. I wouldn't say innocent, but that's kind of what you did back when I played. It was part of the deal. I definitely like going out with the guys after the game. That was part of the program. But my drinking really didn't become too much of a problem until after I retired from baseball, and then I got into a little trouble with it for sure.
So it started as a 17-year-old. You're by yourself, and I'm sure you didn't have a beer with anyone as a 17-year-old, because that would have been against the code of conduct and anything like that. But you know what? You have a good game. A guy says, "Hey, come on, kid, let's have a beer." Did you Skol or Copenhagen? Were you a chewer in the day too?
Oh yeah, you had to do that to be cool back in that day, for sure.
Absolutely, right. Yeah. And then so other things being cool, whatever they are, but going out and having a beer afterwards, or something a little bit more, right? Or a whiskey sour or something like that. I agree with you. I think that's part of what guys do. And in that profession, when you're done after playing in a game, it's night. It's midnight by the time you get out of the stadium. Most guys can't shut it off and turn it down to where they want to go to bed. So they'll have something that will assist them, whether some guys smoke or whether they drink. That there's a mechanics to that. There's a need for that if you want to go to sleep right away. You know what I'm saying? You just playing the game in front of 50,000 people, you're not going to go to sleep. The average fan is going to drive home and they're going to go, "Man, I'm really tired. I can't wait to go to bed." But you don't have that same thing as an athlete. Share a little bit what that was like for you.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that for sure. But it was just what you did back then. The game was over. You'd hang out in the clubhouse, and back when I played, there was beer in the clubhouse, so you'd sit after and shoot the shit with the guys for an hour or so, and have some beers, and then, like you said, you're not really ready to go to bed, so a lot of times you'll take it out to the bars and continue on, and then next thing you know, it's a little later than it should be.
Yeah, it becomes an issue. And Bob, obviously, you're well aware with some of the challenges that a guy like Matt has. You've been experiencing it since you were 17 or 18 years old yourself. And that's just part of the life there.
Like Matt said, it was part of the culture. I knew nothing. In other words, I thought everybody drank, because when I was working for the Angels in the 60s, every guy drank. And if they didn't drink, there was one guy, Albie Pearson. He was a little 5'4" guy, nice guy, great guy, but he didn't drink, and he was kind of not like one of the guys, you know.
Right.
So it's like all the other guys drank, and I used to, when I was representing ball players in the 70s, I had 3 bars within a half hour of Dodger Stadium where they'd close the bar at 2, but they'd keep it open until 8 in the morning for the players.
Yeah.
So I'd bring them in these bars, and they'd serve them all night, and took care of the bartender and the owner and everything. But that was just part of what it was. I remember driving ball players to the Sheraton West or the Ambassador Hotel, or at like 6:30 or 7 in the morning, after a night game, because they want to unwind. A lot of times they go out and they talk about the game for 2 hours, and they want to unwind and just relax, and it was like Matt said, it was part of the whole culture, and I think it was less in Matt's time than earlier. Everybody drank, and smoked, and Warren Spahn used to drink nothing but Heineken beer. He'd have 15 Heinekens every night, and he was fine, but that's what guys did. Unfortunately, my drink was a Greyhound, which was vodka, a double shot of vodka with grapefruit juice, and I drank that morning at 9 in the morning all night, until they said, for me, Bo Belinsky said, for you, Bob, it's AA or amen. And he also said, don't be so cool you freeze to death. And those are the 2 things that I took with me to my meetings.
Yeah, very interesting. You mentioned the smoking too. Everybody had a Camel or a Marlboro Light or whatever. That in and of itself, along with the drinking, Matt, as you can probably sense. Now, I don't know if you smoked at all. I asked the chew just because everybody.
Well, his grandfather, his role model, Bing Russell, loved to drink.
Yeah.
I knew every bartender in this area knew Bing. You know what I mean? He loved to drink and to talk baseball and he was a great guy, and he loved to do that. So Matt actually grew up around that, and
sure.
I think, am I right in saying he was your role model, Bing, Matt?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So his role model drank and loved baseball. Smoked. Yeah.
Because 75% of America did back in those days, right?
Yeah.
In the 30s or 40s, up until really the late 60s, it started to change. And it wasn't just because they put the warning sticker on the label, but that had something to do with it for obvious reasons. People knew that it wasn't, especially a baseball player, a football player. There's a picture in the very first Super Bowl where Green Bay is playing Kansas City in the LA Coliseum, and someone had opened up the door to allow at the halftime a photographer to take a picture. And there's Lenny Dawson sitting in this chair, the starting quarterback for the Chiefs, and he's got a smoke in his hand and he's ready to puff on it. He's got a Fresca that's down below him. So it wasn't a beer, but 2 of the worst things in the world that you can take before you're going to go out for the second half of the stadium. But the culture allowed for that in that day, and it was just completely different. You had a safe spot, Bob, where you took the guys. Did you have a spot yourself, Matt, where you could go after a home game and you go, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4 now in the morning, but I don't have to worry about the reporter catching up to me or the paparazzi or anything like that, and I can be here and I'm safe amongst a bunch of people. I can talk, I can not talk, I can play pool, I can do whatever. Was that a part of the culture for you?
Yeah. At home, there was definitely a couple spots that we had where we could go and not get bothered. But it's totally different nowadays. There weren't cell phones and stuff back then, so you didn't have to worry about all the social media. And there was a little bit of paparazzi kind of stuff, but nothing like it is today. So it wasn't that hard to go find a spot where you wouldn't get bothered. On the road, a little bit different, but at home there was some spots for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it became an issue for you once you said after you were done with your career. Can you share anything about, one, you knew you had an issue and a problem, and more importantly, I want to recover and I need to know how, and I'm going to take the steps to be able to do that.
Yeah. So, knowing, first of all, Bob is such a he's a hero to me too. Bob has been very instrumental in my recovery. I've learned a lot from him, but I didn't really when I was playing, I wasn't drinking what I've learned now alcoholically because I could say no. You know, there were nights that I would take off, and I never thought about drinking before a game or anything like that. It was just something that you did after the game. But something happened after I retired where, you know, I started missing the guys and I was bored. You know, I retired when I was 37 years old. I had money in the bank. I didn't need a job. And before you know it, I just started drinking a lot. I was playing a lot of golf and I started drinking earlier in the day. And, you know, one thing led to another. And before you know it, I had some real problems with alcohol. And it went on, you know, it went on for years before I got some help, and I finally found the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been very involved in that, and I love that. I go to meetings every day, and I sponsor guys through the program. I mentor guys, and it's really changed my life. I've been sober for a couple years now, and I feel great.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's
He looks
not
like-
easy to do for a number of
Harper,
reasons. Go ahead, Bob.
He's like a different person today. Nothing makes me happier to see Matt, you know, with the lights on in his eyes, with the twinkle in his eye, and to see him, and you know, it's just it's a miracle. You know, if you don't believe in God, you know what I tell people: meetings are so important for an alcoholic. I know this isn't an AA meeting, but for an alcoholic, alone in his own head is the worst thing. Even after years of being sober, like I've been. Alone in my head is the worst place to be. You gotta get out of your head. Help other people. He sponsors people. Do things. I see Matt all around town here. He's, you know, goes to meetings everywhere. He's done a great job helping other people, and that you can't keep it if you don't give it away. You know, if I just, you know, if I just sat home and read the big book and the 12 and 12 and played with myself, I would get drunk. I got to go out. I got to go to meetings. I got to go to meetings and get out of myself and see other people and hear other people, you know, and it's been the greatest thing. It's, you know, look at Sam McDowell. He's helped thousands of people, you know, and I'm one of the guys he helped, you know, and it's like, we pass it on, you know. Now Matt will help guys like I've helped guys, and then they'll help guys like he helped guys. It's like, you just keep passing it on and passing it on. And there's nothing better than seeing him with all his faculties, you know, and with a, you know, he's got a major league girlfriend. His life's good. He's, you know, doing everything just like he should have been. You know, he's a great father. His kids now don't have a drunk father. They got a sober father, you know. So, I mean, those are the miracles. His mom's got a sober son. I love Jill. I just love his mom. And she's got a sober son now, you know. So she's got to be really proud of him, you know. So that to me, what he accomplished, where he's here because he's a major league player, but what he accomplished, the biggest accomplishment in his life is sitting here 2 years sober for me. And I mean that, because it's maybe the hardest thing to do. There's 1% recovery rate for alcoholism. The AMA calls alcoholism a disease. So for every Matt, there's 99 out there drunk. And so the point being, you know, we're miracles, you know. And if you know, I was raised Catholic where Our Lady of Fatima, our Mary appeared in front of some kids in Italy and da 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 da. You know, I never saw that, but I go to meetings and I look at him. That's a miracle. That's a miracle. I see miracles performed. So if you ever have a problem believing in God, just look at the miracles around you. You know, there's miracles around us all the time. That's what I try to focus on in my life, are the miracles, you know, the good things. God is good. You know, God
He's
is
been good to me, that's for sure.
Pardon me?
He's been good to me, that's for sure.
Sure has.
Matt, one of the things with a lot of guys when they have any career, but especially in athletics, there's a day when it's going to be over. And for you, you said what, you were 37? Is that correct?
About to be 38. Yeah, I was basically 38.
And then is it fair to say there was a question that you may have had in your mind, now what am I going to do? I've been in baseball ever since I was 5 or 6 years old. It's been a part of my life. You told me it was a part of your family earlier in the show for all those years. Was there an aspect of your life to where I don't know what I want to do now?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the driving forces of the trouble I got into with alcohol. You know, the first couple of years were great. I was just so happy to be out of the pressure cooker and, after going to the ballpark every day for 20 years, it was like, the first day of summer vacation when you're out of school for the first couple of years. I'd wake up every day just grateful that I didn't have to go to the ballpark. But, after a couple of years of that, the reality hit me of, you know, the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life? Baseball's been my life. It's my identity. It's all I know. I never had any other type of passion or desire to do anything. Um, and I didn't handle that well. And that was definitely a problem when the reality hit me of I have a whole life to live and I have no idea what to do with it.
So to follow up with that, things got pretty bad, I would imagine. I don't have anything that I'm responsible for, so I won't be. But what changed your focus and redirected you to where now I do have a goal, or I do have an aspiration, I do have something I'd like to accomplish, and I want to do it, and I don't want to have any alcohol in me while I'm going through that? What was there an event or a time that you said, let's get it together? Was it not just because of a meeting?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I was going to say not just because of a meeting that you went to, but you said I want to rechange my life, and I can, and I will.
Yeah. There were a couple things that happened. My wife asked for a divorce, and she gave me numerous chances. She told me many times, honey, this has to stop. I did not listen to her. I didn't take her seriously. And when she asked for a divorce, that kind of woke me up. And then I actually got into a car accident where I wasn't drinking, thank God, at the time, but I had been out and I fell asleep at the wheel, and could have been a very serious accident. I was lucky that I didn't really, really hurt somebody or myself. And the combination of those two things finally woke me up. And I reached out for some help, and I found the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's what changed my life. I worked the program. I got a sponsor. It brought me closer to a God of my understanding, and it's really changed my life. And I love what I'm doing now. I love the program. I love helping other men, and I hope that I can continue to be a good example of the program and help other guys get sober who want to get sober. It's an awful disease, and it is a disease, and it's one that sneaks up on you, and you don't really know you have it until it's too late, and it's an awful thing. But I love where I'm at now, and I just want to help as many people as I can at this point.
It's great that you found, I'm going to call it a purpose right now for doing that. And I would imagine that it also can open up other purposes, goals, other aspirations in ways that if you were still drinking, they would be just automatically shut off. Who wants to hire somebody that isn't dependable, or isn't going to be there on time, or is going to embarrass the company because of the condition that they're in? Are you starting to see lights in the tunnel that are not oncoming trains, but other great opportunities that are starting to happen for you as well?
No, but I know that those are coming. I think I need to get a little more sobriety under my belt, get more solid, help some more people. But I know that something's coming my way for sure, and I'm gonna find something that has a lot of purpose for me, more alongside with helping other men. But something's coming down the pike. I don't know what it is yet, but something's coming.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Great story about that. You've got two sons that are baseball players too. Let's talk a little bit about them before we go.
Yeah, great. I have my son, Nate. He was born in Japan. I mentioned that earlier. He's 21 years old now. Man, he loved baseball too as a little kid. He was an awesome player from an early age. He actually got a full ride scholarship to the University of Arkansas after his sophomore year in high school. And he was a heck of a player. He still is a good player, but Nate hurt himself in his junior year in high school. He tore his labrum in his shoulder and had surgery on that, and it just never really healed back good enough to play at that level. So he still plays. He's a good player. He's playing at a junior college here in town. He's one of the best players on the team, and he's going to finish up his second year here at Moore Park Junior College, and then there's a chance that he could go on and play some D1 baseball. We'll see. where he stands. I think he's kind of feels like baseball has run its course, but he's having a good time playing right now, and you never know what'll happen. So I'm looking forward to watching him play a lot this year and see what happens next year. My younger son Sammy, he's 16. He's a good little player too. Third baseman, shortstop, first baseman. He plays up at Westlake High School. Both my kids went to Westlake High School, which is kind of cool. Carrying on that tradition. He's a sophomore at Westlake right now. He's got a good chance to make the varsity team this year, and he just loves it. Sammy's a baseball player. The baseball gene definitely got passed down to both of them. I don't have to push them or force them to do anything, nor would I. Anyway, I don't care if they play or not, but they have baseball in their blood and they love it. Especially Sammy. Sammy really loves it, and I can't wait to watch him play this year out at Westlake High School.
Have you had any of the boys swing a bat that you used, a game bat, or at least one that was left over for the days? And because I know there's a lot of wood bat tournaments for 16-year-olds, and when Nate was younger, that might have been a cool thing for you to have, right? You know, hey, he swung, hey, he broke it, doggone it. That was one of my favorite bats. I hope that didn't happen, but kind of passing on a glove or uniform jersey stuff, and especially swinging a stick.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately for Sammy, there's no more bats left for him because Nate broke them all. No, I'm kidding. Nate definitely used my bats a lot and has broke some of them.
And he's got a World Series ring from the Mets too, the losers ring.
A National League Championship ring.
Yeah, National League Championship. Beautiful ring.
World Series ring from Japan though. It's our 20-year anniversary this year from when we won the World Series over in Japan.
You'll be going back for that? Right?
No, I'm actually not going to make it back. They're throwing a little thing, but I'm too busy around here doing my stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sharing Sammy and Nate's experiences as well. I know there's a lot of did you do any travel ball with either of the kids?
Oh yeah.
Especially
goodness. Nate. I coached all Nate's teams up until he was almost into high school. So yeah, and then when Sammy came around, I figured it was best for me to kind of step away, and I didn't coach Sammy growing up. I just wanted to be on the sidelines and be a dad for that. But I was very involved in Nate's travel ball stuff.
Yeah, it's it's incredibly expensive, even more so now than probably when Nate was playing just a few years ago. But two, I can really tell the difference. I'll be very brief with this. I watched a team from South Carolina play. They were in a tournament at Emerson up in Georgia, where there's the PBR tournaments. It's big time baseball. And I watched this one team, and the way that they warmed up and the way they practiced, the way they did things on the field, the way the coach walked out and just told his pitcher, he shooed the rest of the infield away. Get out of here. You need to focus. You need to go. Your feet are in the wrong position. You're opening your shoulder too much. Get back to your basics and fundamentals, please. And then he left, and the kid threw out, he threw 9 strikes over the next 10 pitches and got everybody out. I walked up to him afterwards and I said, "Where did you play?" He goes, "Excuse me?" I said, "I can tell that you played somewhere. Where did you get your baseball experience?" He goes, "Well, I was with the Mariners organization for a couple of years back in the late 90s." I go, A-Rod, Edgar, Randy, Griffey Jr. And when I mentioned Jay Bruner, he's Bruin's my man. And we talked for the next 20 minutes because that's the guy who he connected with. But you can tell, I'm sure there are certain things that you see in a young kid's feet that transfer over to why he's not hitting. You can see a guy that's overstriding as a pitcher that you can see you've been around it your whole life that you can make a correction to. Come on now, kid. Just certain things that you're probably very, very good at because you've been around it your whole life.
Yep, I agree. I've seen a lot of baseball, and I love coaching the kids. That was a blast. I really enjoyed that.
Hey, Harper, you know why I love doing these things?
Why?
Matt is a very humble guy. He doesn't really like talking about himself, okay? And I've had tons of dinners and lunches and going out and everything. I learned more in the last 2 hours from him about his background, and I learned some baseball too. I love that thing about the ball moving the last second on those bats. But what I was going to say is this is great that you bring out. I've learned so many new things about Matt, which I loved him anyway, but I love him more now after hearing some of this stuff, and it's just great to hear him talk about himself because he doesn't usually do that. He's not a guy that walks around talking about himself. So it's been an honor to hear a lot of these stories, Matt. I'm honored.
Oh, thanks, Bob. It's an honor for me to be here with both of you guys. It really is.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with what Bob said, but if I can clarify, I understand thoroughly. There's a difference between me, and I didn't sense any of that out of you, Matt. But these are my experiences, and some of them were fantastic. And I love sharing stories about things that I got to do that had an influence on either me or my life. And that's the way I'm looking at what Bob was saying. And that I agree with him, and that it's really cool when people talk about experiences or specific moments in their life where something really cool happened. And you had made earlier goes, I'll always remember that at bat that I had with Mariano Rivera. You know what I mean? And what guy wouldn't enjoy? What woman would one did you have? Tell me what that was like. Are you kidding me? Mariano,
what about the home run off Pedro Martinez?
All right, tell me what happened with Pedro.
Oh, I hit a good home run off him, and it was my first full season with the Mets, and back then it was 1997, so Pedro was like the guy. He won the Cy Young that year. I think he won back-to-back Cy Youngs. Anyway, it was 1997, and he had a shutout going. We were down 1-0. Our pitcher, Bobby Jones, had a great game going, and in the bottom of the 8th inning, I hit a big home run off Pedro to tie the game, and we ended up winning it in the 9th inning. And that was a big one because that was my first full year in New York, and it was somewhat early in the season, and kind of made a name for myself for that one. So you can check it out on YouTube if you want.
Now we are bragging. We're gonna say go check me out on YouTube. I'm teasing. Tell me. You had a whole specific thing about Mariano and his pitch and the cutter and all that. What was Pedro's go-to that you knew everybody else in the league was talking about, but you were able to discover it at least with your bat, and 395 feet later you got a home run off him.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of luck involved, and I would obviously there's skill involved, but there's luck involved. And the same thing with the Mariano. The hit I got, he threw one of the few bad pitches he throws a season. He threw a cutter. It didn't cut as much as usual, and he left it out over the plate. And if he did that more often, he wouldn't be Mariano Rivera. But that's what makes those guys so good is they don't do that. And the same thing with Pedro. Pedro threw hard, and he was a great pitcher and could spot his pitches, but he had a devastating changeup. He had a changeup that nobody could hit. And 3 or 4 times a year he would throw a hanging changeup and a guy would hit it, and I happened to hang me a changeup. I got lucky that he made a mistake, which guys like that, those Hall of Fame pitchers, they just rarely do.
They only make one every now and then, and
every couple times a year they do it. And I did my job and hit them, so I'm proud of that. But without them making a slight mistake, those things wouldn't happen.
As a coach, I'm going to ask you, here's a normal baseball, right? Mm-hmm. A 2-seam fastball is like this. A 4-seam is obviously. Pedro had a pitch where he would take, and guys would go up to him from other teams, and they go, "You're my idol. Could you show me your pitch?" So he would take a 2-seam fastball like this. He'd turn the ball. And it was his thumb. What I got to rotate, right? His thumb would be either on the lace here, underneath it, or on top of it. And he would move and he would get a different movement. The ball would tail away just because instead of a 2-seam here, I don't know what the laces from these 2 fingers do to change the ball, but he said his thumb was the difference maker. Do you know anything about that? And talk a little bit if you do.
I don't. That would be a good question for a pitcher. Obviously, it sounds like there's something important with the thumb because you mentioned that about Mariano too and Pedro. So I don't know. They're doing something with their thumb that gives them something. I can't speak to it though.
Yeah, you're not a pitcher, so you just see ball, hit ball. I got to hit the dang thing, and they already made that hard enough.
You said that earlier. That's exactly right, and I learned that from Bing, old Bing. I can hear him saying it now. Look for something white and hit it. That's what he would say.
Well, we appreciate your time. I want to be respectful of it. I know Sandra
Okay.
probably was going, you were talking the whole time I was at my workout. You got to be kidding me.
She's still at the gym, I think.
Yeah. Last words. Thanks for being with us, Bob. Thank you for bringing Matt on. Final thoughts from you.
I'm just honored to be here, and like I said, I could listen to. It's so great to hear Matt talk, about baseball. I never really hear him talk about all this stuff, and it was a lot of good stuff. I don't forget when it comes to. Hey, I never passed algebra, but when it comes to baseball, it's all here.
Incredible.
All here.
Incredible.
Okay, so I learned a lot of baseball today, and what's better than that? Being with Harper, a football guy who loves baseball. It's like, see, to me, I've said this before, baseball is Bing Russell, Matt and his kids and their kids. Bing Russell saying, I saw Lou Gehrig. Matt telling his kids he saw, Steve Garvey. His kids telling them, it's America, it's Americana, and it's passing down generations and generations. And that's why baseball has always been very, very dear to me and special to me. It actually saved my life. So I'm just grateful to be with a couple of baseball guys, and I love talking about Matt's grandfather. I never met him, but I feel like I know him through Matt and a lot of the other people that knew him. And I've always loved characters. As you know, I worked for Casey for 10 years. So he would follow that thing of a character, and yeah. I gotta love characters. So thanks, Matt, for all your great stories today. I really liked it.
Thanks both of you. Harper, it was great to meet you. Thank you for having me on. Bob, I love you. And don't forget about lunch on Thursday.
Okay, buddy.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you gonna bring
see
your
you guys. Take care. Thanks,
okay.
Harper.
Matthew Neil Franco, born on August 19th, 1969. He's 56 years old. His grandfather, Bing, his mother, Jill, his uncle, Kirk. Baseball's been a part of his life for obvious reasons. And we are so grateful that you were on the show and gave us 2 hours of your time to discuss the game itself and the history of it in your specific life. So I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. This has been 100 Yards of Football, and the show is called The Sports Page with Bob Case. We're so grateful that you were a part of it here today. We hope you have a fantastic